I really think that everyone has that voice inside of themselves that actually has all the answers. It's really about tuning out the noise and really listening to that voice. What are you surrendering yourself to? And I believe that artists, many of them surrender to their art and they need that to survive. And I think when that why, which is talked about a lot, when that why is super solid, it's almost like your armor. You're like bulletproof to anything that comes at you.
You mind if I ask, what is your why?
Ooh, really getting in the deep water here.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Sean Dulake.
Sean Dulake.
Sean Dulake.
Who is an actor and a producer and serves as a co-founder and CEO of Third Culture Content.
Part of being a human being is that you have so many things to unlock even within yourself, and that journey of knowing yourself it never ends.
Absolutely. Hey, and welcome back to Big Asian Energy. I'm your friend, John Wang. And if you're new to this show, every week we speak to Asian American change makers, ceiling breakers, and a few troublemakers to learn how they're making changes in the world. And as always, if there's something in this episode that you've loved, please share it with someone you care about, because when we rise together. Now, I'm really excited about today's guest, and I'm like a little bit bouncy right now because we have a true star among us. You know, as an Asian American guy growing up, I was always a bit disappointed at how few Asian faces are in shows and movies that I was watching. You know, especially, and this might be more personal to me, strong and hot Asian guys. Like the kind of guys you're like, yeah, I want to be that dude on TV. It was a bit of a thing, but thankfully, all that is changing. And thanks to people like today's guest, whose hit TV show just launched on Amazon Prime. Today, we're talking to Sean Dulake, who is an actor and a producer and serves as a co-founder and CEO of Third Culture Content. After growing up in the US, Dulake debuted on Korean primetime television around 2010 and has been working professionally in Asia and the US ever since. Sean has produced and starred in English, Korean language, fantasy, romance, comedies. I even just saying that, I'm like, there's so much part of that. Entitled Drama World, which premiered on Netflix worldwide and has won the Best Foreign Drama of the Year at the Seoul International Drama Awards. Sean directed a documentary for Discovery Channel that explores global success of Asian and Korean entertainment entitled Korea Next, Finding Hollywood, and has garnered him a Best Director nomination at the Asian Television Award. And his upcoming show, which, by the way, I started watching this morning because it just came out yesterday, is called Butterfly. And it's on Prime Video as a spy thriller series. And he stars across from the legendary Daniel Day Kim and is working as a as a character named Hollis. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into the actual plot. Hopefully, we'll get into it in the episode. But I just want to say, if you have not yet seen this, go on Amazon Prime TV right now, or your Prime Video app right now, and save it, because you're going to want to binge the show. Welcome to the show, Sean.
My goodness, John, thank you so much. That energy is through the roof right now. My goodness.
It is absolutely felt here. By the way, speaking of feeling, what does it feel like to have launched this massive show and this huge hit? And by the way, it's already getting rave reviews online. You know, how are you feeling?
It's been now, I think, just over 24 hours, 36 hours since the release. And we were in New York last week. I'm in LA right now, and leaving to Korea tonight, actually, to go do the promotions out there. It's been quite a whirlwind, but the love around the show, and especially the community really showing up to support the show. I mean, we were at an LA screening yesterday, and the the MC said Daniel Day Kim is on the Mount Rushmore of Asian Americans in Hollywood, and so it's just everyone was like, yes, and so everyone really, I feel like, is showing up to support just not him, but this entire show, which has so many firsts attached to it. So I think just we're absorbing it, we're just taking it as it comes. It's been you kind of work really hard, and there's moments that sometimes happen like this, and just to be living it now is I'm just trying to enjoy it, and I'm just very, very grateful to have gotten this far.
Hmm. Now, I love that, and you're so humble about this, by the way. I just wanna say this because, man, if I were in your shoes, I would be bouncing up and down all day. So thank you first and foremost for taking the time to come on the show and to share your journey with us. Now, you said that this is a show of many firsts. Do you mind just kind of sharing with us what kind of firsts that you're talking about?
This is the first American series, uh, fully financed, obviously, by an American studio, Amazon MGM Studios, and it's the first American series that's been fully shot in South Korea. That's a big first for many different reasons. It's also I just learned, which is quite an unbelievable fact, that it's Daniel Day Kim's first leading role in
Get
a
out.
series. Yeah, ever. I'm like, "Are you sure? Should we check that?"
Yeah,
But they
I'm
were
like,
saying that at
"Can we
the
get
LA screening of.
ChatGPT to fact check itself? That sounds hallucinated." That
Yeah,
that's wild. I mean, he is like the OG godfather of,
I know.
hot Asian men. I still remember the first time he was on a magazine. Now, I wanna make sure we're focused on you, but, I remember the first time he was, like, on, like, People Magazine's, like, hottest guys thing, and I remember celebrating for him and on all behalf of Asian guys, right? That's a
Oh,
huge
yeah.
deal.
Yeah, it is, and, I would say that this cast, there's so many firsts. I can go down the list, but even the way the team was constructed, the department heads of the production crew were Korean. Actually, while the showrunners were American, Steph Chow's Korean American, Ken Woodruff is incredible. So it was a combination of uh, first ever of its kind of really American talent with Korean talent shot locally in Korea, all over the countryside for 6 months, and the fact that it was in the spy action genre, also a first. It's a very meaningful project to be a part of.
Absolutely, I can totally imagine that. Now you play
Yeah.
Hollis and Butterfly. Now, without giving away all the spoilers, could you describe a little bit about the show and the character and what drew you to this character?
Hollis is an ex-CIA operative who is the head of the Seoul office for Caddis Group, which is the big spy agency that uh, Piper Perabot's character Juno co-founded with Daniel Day Kim's character David Jung. And so there's a lot of espionage, a lot of I would describe Hollis as manipulative, conniving, uh, persuasive. And I think Piper would explain Hollis as also he knows where all the bodies are buried. So there's main espionage going on, and then there's a lot of these side quests going on, and those would be the most fun scenes for me, would be when Piper and I would just be it's like a little whisper in the corner of the office, which ends up being a pretty big deal and a big pivot in the operation that's going down, and so it was very, it was fun. I had to prep by studying a lot about how the CIA trains its operatives, not so much from the physical standpoint, but more from the persuade because it's really about information, right? And gathering information. And so, how do you persuade someone? How do you? It's a lot of like human behavior study, and it's very interesting as an actor to just learn that anyway. And so that really went into how I prepared to play Hollis.
That's fascinating. Tell me a little bit about what you learned about the human
Oh
manipulation.
man.
I'm so curious now.
Well, I would say that I only researched the things that were, publicly available, so I didn't get any kind of unique access to how the
That
CIA
you're allowed
trains
to
its
talk
operatives.
about anyway, right? Like
Yeah, and a
like
lot of it's
blink
out
blink
there.
twice if there's another
Yeah,
person in the
exactly.
room who's just like, "Mm."
Yeah. I mean, look, and please, I'm not a professional. I'm not a CIA professional, but I will just share a little bit of what I learned. There was so you're trying to find a source, right? Like usually you need in order to get information foreign governments. I'm not actually a spy. This is just what I studied. You need to find sources, right? And so in order to do that, there's ways. There's this methodology I found called RICE, which is the four main ways that you uh, essentially persuade someone to turn them to become your source. Um, and so it goes down by like resources. So it's basically like bribery is R, and then I, which is the strongest method, is ideology, where if you can really tap into, I'm sounding like Hollis right now. If you can tap into how they believe, if you can convince someone to believe that they are a part of your mission, that's actually the strongest source, because then they'll just be with you forever, in theory, right? C is the one that you see in a lot of spy shows, which is coercion, and that's where usually when you exercise coercion, it's a one and done situation where the guns to the head, tell me this, and then it's over. Like that source, well, hopefully they stay alive, but that's it. You're done with that source. And then E is ego, which is interesting. It's like it's flattery, it's that kind of, which is kind of lands in between ideology and coercion in its strength. So anyway, it was very fascinating kind of sitting in this and learning it, and being able to play and be a spy for 6 months in South Korea was really a dream come true in so many ways.
That's absolutely amazing. And if I remember correctly, you're born in the US, right?
Yes, I grew up in Arcadia, California. I was actually born in Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital, and then I grew up in Arcadia, in a predominantly, I would say, white and Asian community, at Arcadia High School, massive school. And so I spent my youth in a very like traditional American suburb. Went to Boston University, spent my summers in New York, did a lot of theater, started a sketch comedy troupe. But because my parents were concerned about their son majoring in acting, they're like, you need to study business. So I studied business management with an acting minor, hid that in where it didn't trigger more like tuition fees, and then after that, I thought I'd get into producing, came out to LA, was really fortunate to work for a legendary producer named Arnold Kopelson, who's now passed on, but he produced like The Fugitive, Platoon, Seven, like massive films in the 90s. And so I learned a lot from him about how to engage with writers and develop scripts and all that. And then I just missed performing so much that I quit that, studied at a conservatory in LA, and then went to Korea because I didn't speak Korean growing up. And I had started to hear about biracial models and actors like myself who were starting to work and do quite significant um, television and film roles in Korea. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to give myself 2 years, go out to Korea, learn Korean, and see what happens. And I think it's like a decision that makes sense when you're in your 20s, where you're just like, what is risk? You
Well, I
just
mean, it's
follow your
clearly
heart.
paid off.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, one of the best on many more levels than just a career level, moving to Korea was one of, if not the best decision I made in my life. Just the way it changes your perspective when you live in to me, it was a very foreign culture. I didn't speak the language. I do think that you can't really immerse yourself and learn a culture until you learn the language. And then to really now be able to call Seoul my second home. I've lived there the longest in my adult life now. It's been such a pleasure because I've been able to see how Korea has risen uh, onto the global stage, at least in the entertainment space, and to just be a part of that. And now, Butterfly being kind of the culmination of a lot of things, right? Daniel Day Kim's hustle being the number one thing first and foremost, but there's also just macro things that you can't change, right? You don't have control over. This show, I think, is very symbolic of the way the industry has evolved in very positive ways.
That's a really interesting way of looking at it. Tell me more about that because I think that this show is such an example of what true cross culture is. But I'm really curious from your perspective, what has this meant for you?
I, uh, always had a dream of being in Hollywood productions growing up, but like many of my fellow, Asian American actors, when I started out, I was doing castings after graduating from university, and it was I was reading for Chinese restaurant owner number 3, and they wanted me to speak in, like, Chinese accented English, and while I don't, uh there is there's a performance there, right? I just always felt like, "I don't think I'm gonna get cast in this." Like, I just don't think I'm the type to get this, and so, that was when that was those are the roles that were available then, and so that really weighed into also my decision to move to Korea, which was also very small, pool of what they would call foreign actors, or these biracial Korean actors, uh, and there was a moment there where a lot of us started to get cast in things, and so I think now we are post Parasite, BTS, Squid Game. These are things that still, if you ask people in Korea, the pioneers of the industry, they still can't believe the massive impact that Korean entertainment has now on the world. And so I mean, I'm just quoting Daniel Day Kim because he said this at the LA screening yesterday. He doesn't think that a show like Butterfly could have gotten made or gotten the green light, 5, 10 years ago, and so that's a sign of the times, right? I think it's very difficult to calculate these things and to plan these things, but I think it's just about, being entrepreneurial, being just that tenacity and just not giving up, and then you just kinda look back and think, "Wow, I can't believe that this happened." Um, but it's also the thing that we've been all striving for for so many years, and so there's a little element of disbelief, but also just extreme gratitude because, um, there aren't still as many opportunities, as there probably should be, but there are a lot more now. There's this objectively so many more, and that is something to really be thankful for.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And we are absolutely seeing this. And it's so exciting, I feel like, for us Asian Americans in the audience to kind of witness this cultural shift where, yeah, we are topping charts, we are making a change. And it's not just cultural imports, but rather homegrown stories and homegrown actors like yourself, like Daniel, like so many others who have tread and really had to break down doors in order for this to happen.
Yeah, actually, I just mentioned Korean, projects, but Beef, I mean, what a show. That show just objectively, what I loved about Beef was that it wasn't really an Asian specific story. It's like, we are a it wasn't preachy, it was just an incredible show, and through that, that's actually how I feel real progress is made is if you're gonna create something really good, and then bake in those elements that, because I feel like sometimes when you approach it in a flipped way, it can kind of end up existing in a vacuum a bit. But if you just make objectively great shows, great films, they just transcend culture, and that's when that is the positive part about the streaming era that we live in is that now your stuff can be seen by the world.
Hmm. And millions in their own home.
Yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to let you know that Big Asian Energy is officially out, and you can go and pick it up anywhere you buy books, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, etc. If you've ever felt like there's something stopping you from reaching your full potential, if you've ever felt like you want to have that unstoppable charisma and confidence in the work that you do, as well as just the way you show up in life, this might be the book for you. It is a book that is jam-packed with research studies, advice, case studies, stories, and of course, so many different techniques and takeaways, including communication, as well as mindset, as well as confidence, and all the other topics out there. It just won one of the best books of 2025 on Amazon. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go take a look. And finally, if you have a few seconds, can I also ask you to leave a quick review for Big Asian Energy? It not only means the world to us to hear from you, but more importantly, it does absolutely help us in reaching more audiences. I hope you're having an amazing day, and thanks again. I wondered, what would your advice be to Asian or Asian American actors or people who are starting up in the industry right now? Because it's a very different, I would say, landscape compared to it was a few years ago. When a few years ago it was like you have that one Asian like delivery cast person, Asian restaurant owner, like number three, like often. But now we're actually starting to see a little bit more leading roles and more substantial meaty roles. What would your advice be to newcomers in the industry?
Well, it's why I'm so thankful that I'm also producing is because I think now really is the time. I have a very optimistic outlook on the future. I feel that a lot of doors have been opened, and uh, for young people coming up, and I get asked this a lot by starting actors and everything. Um, I think that I think Asian American actors um, I would still say need to be entrepreneurial. I think that uh, it is a better time than ever, Butterfly being the best example, to tell our own stories and do that. If you have any inkling of a story that you're not seeing on TV or in the movies, that really speaks to your heart, that you really want to be seen. Um, it's a blank page. Start with the blank page and just start putting words down. I had no education in producing when I started doing it. When I made Drama World, it was a time when the roles kind of dried up for me in Korea, and I wasn't finding the traction I thought I would find in the US at the time. This was still before Crazy Rich Asians. So I could be that actor who was just complaining a lot to my manager. But I just didn't find that healthy or productive. I just instead found myself writing and finding, just putting that into words. And some of it was just therapeutic. Some of it actually became things that we ended up getting made. And so Drum World specifically was came up at a time when Korean entertainment was really starting to find an audience in the West. And the filmmaker I was working with at the time, we had this idea of what if we made a show for them? Because that doesn't really seem to exist. And then that organically became this English Korean bilingual fantasy rom-com series where an American girl gets magically transported into her favorite Korean drama through her smartphone. It's actually on Prime Video. So maybe it'll play into the Butterfly algorithm. Let's see. Um, exactly. But that was really kind of almost an SOS for myself to be like, I just need to do something to prove to the industry and to myself that I deserve to be here and that there is I wasn't seeing a show like Drumworld getting made at the time. And so I thought, shoot, let's just try to do it ourselves. Um, and it required everything and beyond what I thought I was capable of. And now it's why I really responded to your past episodes too, John, is because you speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, and I was I was quite ashamed for a while of becoming a producer and starting my entrepreneur journey as an actor, because a lot of my actor friends would say, "Oh man, that's so it's like the boring stuff it sounds like," or it's not the artsy stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's the hard stuff that and you're building and it's a lot of quiet conversations in closed rooms, and you're doing the rounds and you're fundraising and it's a lot of that where you're meeting people from all different walks of life. Um But now I look back and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so incredibly thankful that I went through the drama world years because it really forced me to understand myself and learn, like, what am I made of? How bad do I want this, you know? And a lot of mistakes were made, but we thankfully finished the show. We got it out there, and it led to so many other things. And so I would say it's a very long answer to your question, but I really think that everyone has that voice inside of themselves that actually has all the answers. It's really about tuning out the noise and really listening to that voice. Coming up at a time when there weren't a lot of actors that looked like me on TV, that voice is very dimmed, right? It's very silenced inside yourself. Like, I want to be an actor. I want to be in a Hollywood production. But that doesn't mean it went away, you know? It was there, and I think what ends up happening is you kinda end up proving it to yourself. The more you do, the more you do get kinda gain that confidence. And there was one point where when things got really, really hard, um I was faced with this situation where like, well, I could just kind of quit because the only person who's really pushing myself is me. So why keep going? But then I look back, I'm like, well, hold on a sec. If I've come this far, um, obviously this means more to me than just like money I'm making right now or fame or these kind of things. There must be something deeper. And it was around that time where I had this very man, it was this kind of cosmic conversation with a very close friend of mine who's the head of production at Discovery Channel Asia, who's now a film professor in Beijing. He's a very, very wise Indian man named Vikram Chana. We caught up once, it was before the pandemic, and we had this whole dinner talking about what is happiness in our industry, what is fulfillment, and it came down to surrendering. If someone surrenders to something that's different from themselves, he felt that is a pathway to fulfillment and happiness. And so a lot of artists, I think it's so much about the personal journey of w what are you surrendering yourself to? And I believe that artists are s they are many of them surrender to their art, and they need that to survive. And I think just to say this to you right now, John, was like it was a journey in and of itself to say that and not feel ashamed of that. That I love acting, I love producing, I love working in the television and film industry, and I love the people I've met along the way, the endless stories and adventures that have I've been just honored to have it been experiencing. I mean, sometimes I'd be on the butterfly set too, and it'd be like, "Pinch me, like, what am I doing here? This is crazy," you know? And just that's that voice. I allowed it to become louder, and then I started listening to it more, and I think when that why, which is talked about a lot, right, in entrepreneurship books and everything. When that why is super solid, it's almost like your armor. You're like bulletproof to anything that comes at you. You can if it comes from that place, if you're pitching an idea or a business or even advocating for yourself, it's not about yourself. If you surrender to something that's larger than yourself. And look, it doesn't have to be art. Some people surrender to uh, their children, or some people surrender to money. I will say, which I don't know if that's the healthiest thing to surrender to, but hey, it's something. Religion, like whatever it is, I think just finding that calling, it makes the ups and downs not as intense and severe, because it's also about when things get really good. You also know, like, hey, we're a speck in the universe. Like, let's also not get too ahead of ourselves, and so you're just kind of taking it every day, taking it with stride. And I would say it's hard because I think if I said what I'm saying to you right now to my, like, 20-year-old self, if I told my 25-year-old self, "In 15 years, you're gonna be in, like, Butterfly and all this stuff," I'd be like, "15 years? That's forever." I think that that's way too long. I think that it's important to seek and to ask those tough questions to yourself and to really listen, because man, when it aligns and it clicks, it can feel like you're flying sometimes, or I guess as people would say, you're in flow, right? It's a great feeling to have.
Absolutely. I love what you just shared, especially the part about finding your why. I can't agree more, especially for many of us who grew up in an environment where there's so much externalized pressure, kind of like, oh, I got to go to business school. I got to go do this. This is what my parents expected of me. This is what those people around me expected of my teachers expected of me. To find your why is such a valuable resource and it's an unlimited resource. Do you mind if I ask, what is your why?
Ooh. Really getting in the deep water here.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, no, I watched your other episodes, so, I knew this was coming. I think that I've found that storytelling and I think that stories bind us as a species. And we've been telling stories to each other since way before a TV screen existed, since way before radio or any technology. It's in us. It's in us as a species to share our collective experiences and trauma and joy and fears and everything. And so definitely the calling the why for me is to be in this business, this in the media industry where it is the largest megaphone, I would say, to put out uh, and tell stories. I think that tying it to what our mission is at Third Culture Content, it's very much as most entrepreneurs say or founders say. I think since the business is like your baby, there's a lot of DNA that's shared, right? Third Culture Content is uh, we are a TV film production company, but really at the core, what the third culture perspective is, um, there's a term third culture kids, obviously, which is simply someone who is raised outside of their culture of their parents. And so they're forced in ways to create their own third culture. We feel that the third culture perspective, it's regardless of whatever culture you come from or even new cultures that you're adapting, just the fact that you are looking at life in a third culture perspective, which ties to why, again, moving to Korea was one of the best decisions I made. When you're pulled out of your comfort zone and you're just able to look at life through a different lens, uh, that invokes, we believe, empathy in the world, and that really is my core why. Is it's not genre specific. It could be through a horror film. It could be through an action spy series like Butterfly. It can be through a family drama or anything, right? A rom com. I think that when you can, uh, my mission, my core why is to really spread the third culture perspective to people through media. And um the result I hope is that it just creates a little more empathy in times that can feel very divided, and we live at a time where again those you can put out stories and they can be seen by the world, so it's just about finding the right stories and telling them in the right way where it can create impact. So that in a very roundabout way is my why. John, did I do okay?
Yeah, that was perfect. And there were so
Okay.
many layers to
Woo.
that, right? Because it is true, like, the third culture stories and that I mean, I love the name when I first discovered it. I love the mission and what it is that you're creating because a lot of people don't understand this, but there is this middle, like, we live in the in between, right? As Asian Americans, like, we're not quite, like, fully Asian enough sometimes, and then we're not quite fully American enough, and that's how we can feel a lot of times, and we have our own culture. So I'm curious, right now, because, with their culture content, you're creating so many different things. What is it that you feel like is the third culture lens that is so unique?
So back to what I was saying before about I'm very optimistic. right now. I actually think that we're now in this new era where it's a big blue ocean of untold stories. What you're seeing now in the entertainment business is um, Hollywood's very focused on popular IP. That's why you're seeing like the Barbie film, Minecraft, which are the MCU, massive movies, right? In in Korea, you have Squid Game and all that, but what you're seeing is a little bit of like less of these projects also getting greenlit because the resources are being allocated to these massive tentpole projects, and there's different reasons why, which I don't have to get into. But then you're also seeing in Southeast Asia, in other parts of the region, the whole Asian region, the films that are coming out of Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, it's I think that they are seeing what Korea has done, and they're learning from the moves that Korea has made, and they're really I'm even talking about the governments too, are trying to empower the local filmmakers to tell those kind of stories that can break out globally. That's something that third culture content is very much focused on, is we are trying to of course, we're always going to be focused on the US market and getting what is that next butterfly? What is that next big, what is the next beef? But also looking at Asia and trying to empower, uplift, elevate filmmakers in Asia to tell stories that can appeal to the world. And that doesn't necessarily mean they have to be global stories. They can be very, very local stories that can really break out. Parasite is a great example, you know. Um, so that's I think what's coming up is the rise of other countries in Asia. Korea's dominance is undeniable and is definitely here, and Hollywood being the gateway to the global audience is and I still think will reign, as that dominant force. And so these are all the kind of places that we're developing, and it's such a fun experience because again, now it's possible to collaborate with people from Thailand, people from Indonesia, people in obviously the US, Canada, you know what I mean? Europe. We want to meet those third culture minded artists from all over the world, That's why I'm also trying to be very vocal about our company, and cuz it never ends, right? That finding that community uh
Mhm.
which is a global community.
Mhm. And it's such an important one. Now, I love
Yeah.
the specific to the specific mom, I can't even pronounce the word. The specificity of the cross-cultural experience. Because when I was watching the show Butterfly, that really hit me was, you'd have scenes where you see a Korean family talking in Korea, and then, also in English. Like, it's truly these multiple cultures. What was it like, if I could teleport you back onto the set to be amongst essentially these 2 distinct cultures.
I would say, so a lot of the crew that actually worked on Drama World came back to work on Butterfly
Oh, really?
because now
It's like, "Hey, we're all
there's
back." Yeah, it's a reunion tour.
yeah. Let's just say when you talk about first of all, a project that big, which requires you got to bring in the pros, right? To really do a great job. There is actually it's a growing number, but there is a list, right, of the bilingual people in Korea who understand international co-production. So it was kind of fun going back on the set, and the line producer is like a brother of mine. We were in the trenches during the Drum World years. A lot of the department heads, a lot of the crew who like have come up, and I'm like, oh my god, now you're what, post supervisor? What, like, these people that started out very very young with us. It was great to kind of reunite with a lot of them. Uh, they were posts like they worked on in between Drama World and Butterflies. Like, oh yeah, I did Pachinko, then I did Ixo Kitty, and now I'm like, okay, man. Wow, um, and so it was that was a really nice thing, was kind of like kind of bringing the family back together again. But I would say, in an execution standpoint, there were definitely Americans who were non-Korean speakers on set, and then there were Koreans who were non-English speakers who were on set, and I would say that 80% was no problem fully understood, but there was kind of a 20% fringe on either side that it was a little bit like lost in translation, but because everyone came with a common goal of let's just make the best thing we can, and you had the blueprint, which is the script, right? It was it was very fascinating to see how we just found a groove. It was so interesting, like, just and then everyone, the Americans are going to the same Korean restaurants after the shoot with the crew, and it just it was like it's doing it is like, man, this is how the world really should be, man. Just everyone just got along. And then of course we're all at karaoke after the rap
Oh, of
party,
course,
like
yeah.
singing Korean songs and English songs, and the Americans are singing Korean songs and they don't speak Korean, but they're singing it anyway. Just stuff like that is going on. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Awesome, amazing, I love that. What was it like working with Daniel Day Kim?
He is just a force of nature, man. I think we're all in constant awe of his tenacity and leadership through this what he kept saying is like a fulfilled dream of his, and you really felt it, the passion, he'd be first on the set. He would just the action he was doing was all real, and he did it himself. I saw it firsthand, and on top of communicating constantly with the studio, and you got to, as an executive producer, you got to keep making those big decisions on budget and all these things in real time. If there's script notes that need to be addressed or changes that need to be made, every single thing that you can imagine that a producer. I kind of explain executive producing in television as like being the CEO of the show. It's like you got your board of directors, those are your executive producers. So they're making all of the critical decisions of the show, and Daniel just, you could just see it, his experience in his daily work, and I really think he brought it as an actor too. I mean, man, he just it's a difficult thing to wear all those hats at once for something as high stakes as this level of show is. So, how was it working with him? It was just an honor, is all I'll say. I'm glad that he allowed me to be a part of it.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing and giving us that glimpse. Now, you've heard the show. We like to take it a little bit deeper. Is it okay if I ask you a deeper question?
Oh, I think we're already in the deep waters. Let's
you
swim in
know,
it. Okay.
because your journey has been so fascinating. I mean, the places that you've gone. I mean, you talked about the struggles of what it was like originally working on Hollywood, and then going back, going to Korea, learning a new language, and not just a language but culture, and then finding success there. And by the way, Drama World has so many cool things, and there's a lot of tie-ins, and you guys won all these different awards. There's so many shiny bright points. Did you ever have, like, a dark night of soul moment where, like, that moment where you might have been going through a struggle that you went, this is a turning point, and I could either give up and leave and, I don't know, go pursue business somewhere else and do something
Mm,
else, and what did you ever have anything like that?
yes. Would be the short answer.
And scene.
Uh, yeah, I think that there were a couple that come to mind, but maybe I'll share um yes, I'll share this one. This was actually just over 10 years ago. I'd done a string of projects in Korea. I came back to LA and I was like, I'm gonna take on LA. I'm gonna get a manager, which I did. I got an agent, started doing the rounds, and was still kind of seeing a similar thing that I saw. Again, this I really think that, as I'm sure many people say, Crazy Rich Asians was an inflection point for sure. So this is still before that. Um, I remember I was at my parents' house and my mom walked in the door with these books, and she was like, she's done so well. She's a real estate agent in San Gabriel Valley, and it was real estate license books. And I remember looking at the books, and she's like, we love you, and we just want the best for you. She puts these books on the desk, and I'm like looking at those books, and I'm like, No, no, not yet, man, not yet. You know? They were to get your real estate license. It was the
Oh!
books to study,
Oh,
yeah, to
man.
get your license.
Oof.
Yeah, and so,
Yeah.
and I kept the books, but I've never opened them to this day because I wanted to keep that as like a to kinda show distance, if that makes sense, of like, I'm gonna get as far away from these books as possible, you know? Anyway, that's just a fun story, but I would say one a kinda darkest before the dawn moment was I was fundraising for Drama World season 2, and, it was rough. I mean, season 1 was, uh, an adventure, and we were fortunate because we launched the show on Netflix when Netflix first launched in Asia, so this was at the time when all the Korean broadcasters had banded together and they said, "We're not gonna give any content to Netflix. We're not gonna let them take over." You know? Obviously, things have kinda changed, right, since then, but, at the time, it was this pocket of opportunity for us because we were an independently financed show, and we could go anywhere, and so we're like, "Yeah, let's go on Netflix," and that really gave us a lot of visibility and led to the accolades and all that. So we thought, "Oh, we're flying high. Everything's gonna be smooth sailing from here." So we go in to do a second season that's far more ambitious, more traditional running time, bigger cast. So obviously, we're talking about a much larger budget. And I would say that that was my, I don't know, grad school or maybe even my PhD in producing because I can't even tell you how many people I pitched during those years. It's kind of a blur. I did 8 round trip flights between LA and Seoul in 1 year, and I just remember kinda thinking, like, I didn't really know where I was, what I was doing because it was just chasing, 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 and I had hit this moment in 2018 where I was getting lunch with one of my best friends that I grew up with in downtown, and he's like, "Man, why the long face here? What's going on?" I'm like, "I don't know, I feel like I have something here, but I can't get this second season going," you know? And he said he worked in the tech business, and he was like, why don't we go to my apartment and, hop on LinkedIn and let's just because he does sales. He did sales for a company called Box at the time, and he's like, "Sales is my thing. Let's just send out a few feelers." And we literally spent the afternoon just doing that. So we sent out a bunch of feelers, and within 24 hours, we got 15 responses. I was like, "Oh, okay." And within 3 weeks, I had raised like 75K, which was like a lot of money at the time, right? That's a lot, right? So I'm like, "Oh, maybe this messaging will work if we go to like the big let's literally we googled biggest Asian like entrepreneurs and this was again when Crazy Rich Asians came out and I definitely attribute the traction we got to that film because I don't know if you remember at the time there were executives and people that were buying up theaters for like that gold open, right? That happened around. So I had us feeling maybe there's a way to align Drama World um with the goodwill that was going toward Crazy Rich Asians. I ended up we ended up cold messaging Steve Chen, who's the co-founder of YouTube, on LinkedIn, and he wrote us back like the next day. He's like, "Hey, interested to hear more." Gave me his personal email. I'm like, "Okay, um, interesting." So, we like went up to San Mateo. We're taking selfies in front of the original YouTube office, and we're like fanboying over him, like, "Oh my god, we're gonna meet Steve Chen." And and then it ended up being like a scheduling conflict. It was canceled at the last minute, so we came back to LA really deflated. I'm like, let's just send one more message to like ask for a Zoom, and so we did that. He said, "Oh yeah, sorry about that. Why don't we get on a call tomorrow?" So we did that, and then without sharing details, in that 1 hour phone call, he committed a lot more. And he said, "Come to this event," which was one of the first Gold House. It wasn't a gala at the time. It was like a mixer. They called the A100 mixer at the time, which Steve's sits on the board of that organization. So went there. He introduced me to Kevin Lin, co-founder of Twitch, a lot of his friends in the business. I ended up raising like what we needed to go back to get match funding to in Korea that really led us to making the show. And I would say that it was definitely a darkest before the dawn moment for me, but it was also just a real lesson in like just don't give up. Like you just really never know what's on the other side of a reach out. And what's really the worst that can happen is people say no. Life goes on. You're gonna hear a lot of no's in your life, you know. And maybe it was because I'd experienced that in my acting career, that it's just a part of the job, right? Is you just keep trying. And so but I would say that yeah, it was around that time when I did feel a lot of darkness inside, and it was really uh it was challenging because it you know, I wasn't in my 20s anymore. I was kind of it was this moment where I was thinking y- a lot of questions about calling, meaning, all that. And I remember a friend who different friend who really was worried about me. He recommended this book by Carol Dweck called Mindset. And that book was really helpful to me because I realized that I had been living my life in a fixed mindset for pretty much my whole life. And I it was all about the results, which results do matter, but when you use those external results to define you as a person, it can be dangerous, right? And back to that point of surrender. If you're just all about yourself, me, you know, the ups and downs can become very, very severe, you know. And so I really I went back. I after doing Drum World, I wanted to train more. I just want to get back to the basics. I met an amazing acting coach through Justin Chan, who is this incredible actor who played our villain in Drum World, who's now he's a huge director now doing big shows. um, he directed the pilot for Chief of War with Jason Momoa. But anyway, so I wanted to just get back to the basics, and I fell in love with acting again, and just fell in love more with the process of the day to day. And I think that is growth mindset, right? Is when you're just about what am I okay, this is what I first of all have control over, and this is let's just focus on today and right now, and what can I do to better myself today, or to push this a little forward a little more today. Or you know, it's that saying of like brick by brick. What is it? I'm going to butcher the saying, but it's like if you piece each brick perfectly, eventually you look and you have like a wall, right? I really it was almost out of survival that I shifted my mindset, and it didn't happen overnight, but I do think that man, I can't even explain how regardless of things having worked out thankfully in ways for myself, just as a person and for my mental health, and for my growth, I think that was a very definitive moment. Was And it's a weird thing, right? Looking back, that you only face those moments when you are thrown into those darkest of times. I believe, you know, and so you know, you can try to tell people, give people advice to avoid it, but I almost it's not a masochistic thing to say, but I think we're all on our own journeys, and really like go for it, you know, especially if you're trying to do something that doesn't exist in the world. Like you think it's going to be easy? Of course not. You know, it's going to demand like everything and more from what you think you're capable of.
Absolutely. Wow, I love the wisdom behind that. It 100% resonates. There's always gonna be challenges, but it really is in those moments that you have to trust. You are being given this challenge because you have the capability to rise to meet it. And it's so difficult in those moments to have that conviction to keep walking forward, and that's when it is that we bring out our why.
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah. And every why is different. And it should be, right? Can't have the same why as your friend even, you know, even your best friend. Everyone has a different why, and I find that is a very exciting you know, part of being a human being is that you have so many things to unlock even within yourself. And that journey of knowing yourself is it never ends, you know. And I find it so fascinating. I think also because I'm an actor, just like learning more about human beings is just a it's an endless fascination that I have.
Yeah, absolutely. If I remember correctly, when I was doing a little bit of research, you studied Meisner, right? When you're that was part of your training and
That was
background.
actually the 2-year Meisner program is what I went through through Justin Chan's recommendation, and, his name's Alex Taylor, amazing acting coach in LA, really unlocked me and gave me so many tools that there's, like, a clear before and after. I can't really watch too much stuff that I did before I trained, to be honest, but
No, it's
I
okay.
you
All
know
of us, none of us can. Yeah, we all
Yeah,
have that
yeah.
those blender years where we're like,
Oh, man.
yeah.
Those early short films, it's like, I don't need to tell you about those, you know? Uh, but
But what a
but no, I mean,
beautiful
it's
thing to
training.
reflect. It's kind of like those real estate books you have, right? It's like what a beautiful thing to know. Wow, like this is how far I've come. This is what I, can create as a result of it.
Yeah, while also not becoming too complacent and celebrate too long because the work continues. You know what I mean? But no, I think it was I actually listened to the what was it the Google summary of your intro for your book. Um, yeah, it was like the first 10 minutes that I had to do my research, right? And you had written something about the experience of people pleasing. I'm gonna paraphrase this horribly, but it was a lot of it. I felt like, "Oh my god, did he write this for me?" Because it was I think allowing that space for yourself to make mistakes, which I think is really, really growth, right? It's like the cornerstone of growth is trial and error, and learning from those mistakes. I have a hard time even saying that they're mistakes. It's just life, right? Like just rolling with it. And I do think the thing to keep an eye on is your integrity for sure. I think that there's, at least in my experience in the entertainment business, there's a lot of temptation to kind of become the monster to defeat the monster, if that makes sense. I'm speaking very encryptedly, but uh, I think maintaining your integrity is very important. I would like to say that I have done that to the best of my ability. If there were any things that didn't go according to plan or up to certain expectations, I've faced all those conversations with my head held high, and just that's all you can do is like if a certain distribution deal didn't work out the way, oh, it wasn't as much as it was, and there's an investor who was disappointed, just facing those things head on. And I've found that actually when you maintain your integrity and you just face the music, people actually respect you for that. And like, so for Steve Chen, for example, he ended up actually participating in our seed round for third culture content when we started to take the company more seriously in 2021. He's been just a massive supporter, and it wasn't like drama was a huge financial success. We did okay, but like but I think it's just about when you put yourself out there, and you if you have the opportunity to be seen by some of these very prominent players in the world, they watch you for more things than just like how much are their returns right now, this instant. I think they watch for your character, and also just like, do people like you, or just are you okay with just do they want to spend time with you, and that kind of thing. And so um I'm rambling, but I was quite inspired by your intro for your book, because I do think that there is a lot of people pleasing that does kind of go on in the Asian American community when it comes to just like how we're raised, and a lot of that, and being bold about uh without being rude, of course, about like what you stand for, what you want, and just being able to state that. Now we're at a time where there will be a lot of people that will be very receptive to your why. If you just like put it out there, and there's real power in putting that out there, like put that energy, get that big Asian energy and put that into putting your why out in the world.
Absolutely. Thank you, by the way. I appreciate that so
I'm trying to
much.
do the shout outs, man.
And I gotta say, what you shared about integrity, that is such a rare thing, especially in Hollywood. So thank you for representing that. And just from an Asian American guy again, for being you. We need more people who can stand in that light and go through the journeys that you did and to show up as a model for the rest of us who get to see and get to witness what it's like to stand in that power, in that light, and that why.
Man, thanks, John.
Thanks,
I
John.
mean, you're doing
You're
it
doing it.
you're doing it
You're
in
doing
big
it in
ways
big ways
yourself too,
yourself
and
too. And I'm just really,
I'm
I'm
grateful that we
grateful that we
met,
met,
and it
and
means
it
so
means
much
so
that
much that
you had
you
me
had me
on.
on.
You know,
You know,
it's really
it's really
great to
great to.
meet like minds, I'll say. There's
Thank
a
you
lot
so
less
much, brother.
explaining to do, right? You meet
Woof.
like minds. Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
I'm like heating up over here. Thank you so much, Sean. I gotta say, actor, creator, producer, entrepreneur, and now after this episode, I can definitively say philosopher. Uh,
Oh, wow.
we
Okay.
share some we share some deep, deep wisdom in this episode. Thank you so much for your time for coming on.
Oh, man, I hope it's helpful for your listeners, and, would love to do this again one day.
Absolutely. You could find Butterfly and Drama World on Amazon. Is that right? You can find both shows on Amazon now. On
Yes, Prime
Amazon Video,
Video.
Prime Video. Go check them out. They're exceptionally good. I mean, once you start, just make sure you're blocking off the rest of your night and make sure you're not booking anything for the next 3 days because you're not going to want to stop watching. Sean, once again, thank you so much for coming on. For everyone who's listening right now, go check out the show. And don't forget, come back. And if there's something that you heard on the show that you found helpful, send the episode to your friends and those who care about. When we rise together.